I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom. All right, it's my favorite time of the day because I get to interview another high impact man, and some would say this guy is our only hope. And I think I would agree. I've had so many conversations in the gloom with this guy, and he's just passionate about other people and putting others first. And that's encouraging to me, and it hopefully is to you guys too. And so Obi-Wan, it's good to see you, man. You look really good this morning. Unfortunately, it's a podcast, so guys won't be able to see you. But why don't you start us off from the beginning? Who EH'd you? What was the first workout like? And how did we land on this amazing name of Obi-Wan?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me play. This is a cool opportunity. So, the EH. So, almost full credit goes to Barn Door. I got kind of a little bit of a long story here of the EH process. But so I worked with Barn Door about 15 years ago. And through leaving that company, started working for somebody else, still within the construction industry. So I'd run into Barn Door every once in a while. And one of the times I ran into him, he really looked good. I just brought it up to him like, "Hey man, you look really good. You know what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, it's F3," and he was going on and on about it. And like most sad clowns, it was like, no, not for me. So after seeing him a couple times, hearing about it a little bit more, I was actually on Twitter, and for all of our Chicken Neck podcast listeners out there, they had retweeted or quote tweeted one of Biff's Namoramas.
Oh, nice.
And these guys were having a great time. It looked like so much fun. And I noticed the F3, and I was like, okay, well, 2 and 2 equals 4. So I should probably reach out to Barn Door and see what this is all about. And so hit him up again, let him know I was looking for something in the, kind of renew some fitness in my life. And that was maybe on like a Monday. And he reached out to me on a Wednesday and was like, "Hey, come out to Maize. Let's get your first day under your belt and let's figure this out." So show up on a Thursday morning at the Maize, and Griswold was on the queue. And it may not have been that hard for most people, but it was exhausting on my first day. Hadn't done a whole lot of fitness before that, so it was really tough. Remember running into a couple specific people through the beatdown. And then at the end, I got in the middle of the circle and said my name was Henry Kenobi, and I have 2 kids and not much else. And I'm pretty sure his wait time from the back row was like Obi-Wan. Yeah. So that's how the name came about.
Nice. So for guys that don't know, so your last name, so what's the guy's name it's Star Wars, right?
Yeah. So Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay, and so then he just
spelled different, but
yeah. Is that a nickname? Had that come up before in life? Like, has anybody else ever called you that, or this was the first?
So a nickname never really stuck. You'd actually get it a lot at like the retail stores. They'd see the credit card and they'd be like, "Kenobi."
Yeah.
The fun part I always get to tell everybody is my little brother's name is actually Ben Kenobi, which is the actual name of the character. The full name of Obi-Wan Kenobi is Ben Kenobi.
So were you a Star Wars fan growing up? Like, are your parents into that, or?
No.
I
don't know. I don't think they had any idea.
Okay, that is funny. So how did you know? So you knew Barn Door sort of through like a long-term work connection, it sounds like, right?
Yep.
Okay. And tell me, you mentioned like fitness, maybe you weren't doing a whole lot before, but like growing up, were you active in sports, or what was sort of been your journey from a first F perspective?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town, so played, sports year round until high school was over. I got to college, and you stay active through maybe some intramurals here and there, just some pickup games of this or that. But after college, kind of hit the, you like the P90X programs, the insanities, here and there a couple months, and then don't do anything for a year or two. So
Yeah.
kind of off and on. But yeah, when I had talked to Barn Door the last time, it was probably a year or two since I really did any consistent physical activity.
Okay. What small town did you grow up in?
West Point, Nebraska.
West Point. Okay, gotcha. Do we have any other guys from there? Any other packs that have found themselves in F3 Omaha?
I've ran into quite a few people that know people from the area, but
Okay.
like nobody that I grew up with or anything like
Okay.
that.
Got it. So that first workout, Griswold on the queue, I mean, were you gassed? Did you spill Merlot? What do you remember other than it being difficult?
Yeah, definitely gassed. One thing that stuck out is we did do Atlas that day, so I remember running up and down Atlas. That was horrible. Um, and then we did at the Maize, basically through the residentials, we just did like a grinder that you ran around the block. And I remember specifically being the 6, and there was just a pack of guys that came and got me on that last time around, which really stuck with me. It's something I'll remember for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting to me too is like sort of where were you at? Like what got you to the point, do you think, that you were ready to say yes to the invitation? Was it just like, did you know something was missing? Were you just sort of fed up with your current fitness level, or what sort of mindset wise got you ready to say yes to that?
Yeah, it was kind of a mix of a lot of things. You see pictures over the years, and the great thing with phones now is you see year after year, right? And yeah, it was right about I think it was Easter that year. I remember a picture specifically that it was like, man, we gotta do something.
Yeah.
And then just mentally, I'm one of those people. I'm fairly wound tight, high strung, so any way to get that stress relief throughout the day is a good thing. So it's just kind of a combination of a lot of things that made me reach out to Barn Door.
Yeah. Stress from work or family or all the above, or
All the above, right?
yeah.
I mean, work usually starts it, but then yeah, it's always a mix of everything.
Yeah, got it. No, I'm with you. If I start the day right, then it at least fills the tank, and work will drain it maybe by lunchtime or whatever. But
Yeah.
well, tell me, I think the other question would be interested, like how you progressed. Like, did you post Friday and Saturday? Like, how did you progress through like the next workout? Because I think sometimes the second one is the hardest one to come back to.
Yeah. So I think I was pretty consistent right away. For whatever reason, that first beat down, the COT, everything at the end, the prayer, it was really it seemed like a really good way to start the day. So I remember the first probably 2 or 3 weeks was very challenging. You're fighting soreness. I don't know where the headaches came from, if that was a mix of soreness and lack of sleep. But yeah, pretty consistent. And then, so I started, I think it was September 16th of 21.
Okay.
And then I think it's September 30th is the anniversary of Chris Gradaville's passing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there at Combine that Friday morning. I think the day after he maybe passed.
Wow.
And that was a huge impact early on. Of when I showed up that morning, I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea that a lot of the guys had relationships with Nugent. But I remember that morning specifically, there was a different feel, and you could just tell the impact that somebody had on all of these people's lives. And if he was part of this group, it seemed like it was somewhere I needed to be.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to work out with Nugent at all before then, or?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, man. It's so fascinating to me. Like you said, even when you're maybe not trying to have an impact, right? Just showing up, being yourself, and encouraging other people has just a tremendous impact. And so many guys remember that about him, just, even just coming to pick up the 6, right. Or saying something encouraging to a guy who's maybe struggling with however many Merkins you're doing that morning, or, interesting. I'm sure that morning was a lot of mixed emotions. Do you, I guess, talk me through, as you're thinking about, kind of your fitness journey, and how have we done in F3 Omaha sort of coming alongside you in that? I mean, have there been enough options? Have you had enough support? I mean, Queen service, I don't know, just sort of riff on that.
Yeah, on the fitness side, plenty of options for sure. Between the MERS, the pre-runs, the regular beat downs, halfway house now, plenty of options for sure. One thing that really kickstarted me was there was a couple of guys that were early on in their pre-run careers, if you'll call it, that reached out to me to have me join them, and that really kickstarted a lot of the relationships that you start building through that pre-run, and just kind of set me off onto a fitness of actually somewhat liking running. I really never did before. It was pretty boring and it was hard.
Yeah.
So through that process, the pre-runs was just a great way for, to increase the fitness side of things, but also, man, you just have a lot of good talks on those pre-runs, build some relationships with some guys, and then, you just start seeing the same different people every day in the gloom, and it just kind of builds from there.
Yeah. You sounded hesitant when you it's almost like you're, I'm a runner, but I'm not, I never planned on this, right? I think we do. That happens to a lot of guys. I don't know. So you're running, do you do mostly pre-runs, and have you done halfway house? It sounds like maybe you have.
So I did once.
Okay.
I did not come close to finishing at the same time as the usual halfway house group does, but but I've done some of the shorter runs too, a couple of the 5Ks there. So it's a great option for once a month.
Yeah. I love that guys reached out and just identified, hey, we all kind of want to start this pre-running thing. Let's do it together. It's funny, this morning I showed up to a workout. We were getting ready to go on the pre-run. Somebody pulled in late. We went back to get him. It was amazing. I don't know if you've met him yet, but he was in his car, and I was like, hey, do you want to run? And he was like, well, not really, but since you're here, I guess I will. And just sort of realizing, like, he wants to pre-run, right? But he needs a couple guys to come alongside him to do that, which I think is great, right? And the fact that you had guys do that is really cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think, at least from my perception, and when I first started, it was intimidating seeing these guys come back from pre-runs. The assumption was always that it was a pace that I wouldn't be able to keep up at. So I do love that most of the sites, we have different routes, different paces. We're really trying to make sure we're welcome to everybody that wants to start running. I don't know of anybody in F3 that wouldn't, hang back with anybody that would want to do a half a mile, just to get started. So that's been fun too, of, trying to pay that back throughout F3, and making sure that myself and just chatting with other people of, we're watching the 6 on pre-runs too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's been cool to see that evolve over time too, because it's even, now we've got guys showing up that are maybe injured or a bruiser, and they want to walk, right? So it's like, well, heck, let's walk, sort of sacrificing that first F or the second F and to support another guy, which is super cool. I'm curious. So when you look at your pictures now, how are you feeling? Have you made some progress? Have you had success there on that first F?
Definitely, yes. Is it all about that? I found out no. But, it's definitely helped.
Yeah, it's so funny. I remember my first 8 block that I ever did. I think one of the goals I wrote down was like to have a 6-pack, right? And then that's like, what a shallow goal, I was like, oh man, but over time, like you said, you just learn, like, oh, you kind of start looking around, like, nobody's really here for that, right? We're actually here for it's a coffee group. Talk to me about the second FP. So it sounds like runs were a big deal, big part of your relationship development. What else was helpful in that space?
Yeah, coffee's always great. Between work schedule and getting kids ready in the morning, I do not go to coffee very frequently. So those pre-runs really are that second F time for someone like myself. So yeah, through the pre-runs, obviously being a site Q was a great part of that, building some fellowship with individuals that you maybe don't go on pre-runs with, or that aren't pre-running at the time. So that definitely helped a lot. Outside of that, it was just kind of keeping in touch with some of those guys that you make connections with in the gloom, and maybe some group text messages, maybe just some one-on-ones of just kind of keeping in tune with what everybody's got going on throughout their day, and just kind of building upon that.
Yeah. Did you do any of the like pre-run Q source, or have you been able to get engaged with the Shield Lock or any of those opportunities, things you've done?
Yeah, so the Q source on the pre-runs, so we did start that out at the Maize, and had some mixed reviews. Been trying to keep it going. Definitely one Q source that sticks out to me would be the Whetstone that T-Ball had started when the Whetstone opened. A lot of good conversations there. Always a great topic. It was always fun and interesting to see where the conversations went based on the topic. So yeah, a lot of good input from there. Even if you just go and really just listen to everybody, there's a lot of good tidbits from just everybody in different walks of life from Q Source. As far as Shield Lock goes, yes, I'm part of a Shield Lock. We're just phasing out of the year of most of us being site Qs, so we haven't always been the best about planning times to get together. We all kind of carry some very busy schedules, at least in our own eyes. So yeah, it's been a struggle to get together, but that doesn't mean that we haven't had some good, whether it be through our text messages or just different times you see the guys in the gloom. Still a lot of good positive things from being part of that Shield Lock.
Yeah. I'm hopefully you guys can get together more regularly. I'm just always impressed with the guys that, they form a Shield Lock, they're consistent, and you just sort of see, right, just this level of accountability and confidence, and some of those things just go way up, because a lot of us have never had that sort of, band of brothers, if you will, throughout our lives. But
yeah, and I think that's a big part of the Shield Lock is the accountability piece, where we're all pretty open with each other on, getting out in the gloom, and then also keeping track of the stuff outside of the gloom is really where I've found the benefit of it. Whether it be family, your career, just kind of being a man in general, really beneficial.
Yeah. I know you've got, you mentioned you have 2 kids, but remind us what, so you and your wife been married how long?
I was 13 years this summer.
Wow. Okay. Congrats, man.
Yeah, thank you. 2 kids. Our oldest daughter is 9, and then our son is 5.
Okay. Awesome. And I remember maybe a couple conversations of just, kids, for you, maybe taking some extra time, or, talk me through sort of family dynamics and how that's all impacted maybe your ability to stay, like, for coffee, or, even like second F events in general are kind of hard for me, but what's been your experience there?
Yeah, the second F events are tough with younger kids. I don't like being away from home more than I need to. Need to be there for support for the family. But so yeah, our youngest, our son, he's on the autism spectrum, so he does take a little bit more of our support and time. But man, I tell you what, the resources and the people that he's had around him in his life have made a huge impact on him already. He's only 5. He started kindergarten this year.
Nice.
Which, I mean, is a huge milestone. There was times where we weren't sure what that looked like for him. So it's a day-to-day challenge for myself, our entire family, for him. But he's got the things in his life in place that are hopefully going to set him up for long-term success.
Yeah. How old was he when you guys found out he had autism?
Yeah, he was about 2.5, just about 3.
Okay. Yeah, I just was just at work and had a couple coworkers that we've been working remote, but they both were talking about their kid around 2 or 3 that was recently diagnosed, and sort of this light bulb went off on like, oh, we can connect, right? We can support each other. Curious, have you found other guys that maybe you've been able to share your journey with in that space? Just how do you deal with some of the challenges raising kids, and specific to a child with autism?
Yeah, haven't found anybody specifically, but as you know, pretty much anybody in F3, anytime I bring it up or anytime I'm talking about it, everyone's more than supportive. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that it's a challenge for a marriage. Just our attention is needed in different places than sometimes where we want it to be. So through that and the shield lock, just being able to lean on them or other guys in the gloom of just sometimes it's just a conversation of, hey, here's what's going on, and sometimes just getting it out in the open makes it seem not as bad.
Yeah. No, I wonder too if like as men we don't, like, we go through these things that are challenging, but we don't think to bring them up, and so then we're just going through it, not realizing the guy next to us has a very similar situation. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think we've talked on many runs, and I'm just amazed you're like you said, you get stressed easily, but I would think myself, I know I would get stressed, or even maybe self-conscious, or sort of feeling like blaming yourself or that sort of thing. And you've just always approached it with a lot of grace and, some sense of peace, knowing that like, hey, this is our situation, and we're providing our son, with the best resources we can. So I've just really appreciated your approach to that.
Yeah, it's big T claps to mostly my wife. She's
yeah,
she's taken the reins on all of it and really set not only him but our entire family up for success. She can't thank her enough for it's a lot of weight she carries. So
what's that quote behind every great man is a better woman, or I can't remember what it is, but so tell me, has the Concentrica been something that you've sort of adopted or looked at as sort of a way to organize your approach to relationships in life?
Yeah, it's definitely a structure that always striving to emulate. Not always successful though. I do find myself a lot more on the putting more time into my career and my work than my family, my 2.0s, friends, family. But it's always there. It's always in the back of my head of when you got a choice to make, what is the right choice, and what needs to be prioritized at this time. I think that's where I've probably struggled the most of just being present the times when I need to be present, whether it be at home, with friends or family, and just letting some other things go for the time being. Not that they're not important, but just prioritizing where you need to be and where you need to be.
What have you found anything helpful in that space? Almost a selfish question there, but like I find myself constantly fighting that urge to focus on work. I think maybe as men that just is where our minds go. But what have you found anything that's been helpful in that space?
I think some of it's just been surrounding myself with some good support individuals in that space. Just being able to, again, openly discuss it. And then, a lot of the times the phone is a constant reminder of work. So even just letting that behind somewhere in the house, just trying to focus on, hey, from my kid's perspective, what do they need dad to do right now? If that's play a game, then play a game. And you got to let that stuff go for a little bit. There's really nothing that I can do while we're making supper or in the evening that's going to make a difference at work. So if you got to get into it later that night, fine. But, when you need to be present, try to be present where you need to be.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like you had a COT one time that was like a be where your feet are kind of thing. I could be remembering that wrong, but yeah, I love that idea. And I think, even more, it's like the phone, right? If you can put the phone down, out of sight, and just, be present. I think, at least for me, I know it's a problem when my daughter is specifically telling me, put your phone away. I think you don't want them to be fighting for your attention with a device. I think that always gets me. But what, I think as we're looking at sort of the third F piece then, and just thinking through, so you've got, I think you've got your family life, right? Maybe there's some stressors or uncertainty there with your son, and you've also got a daughter that you're trying to parent and, be a good father to. And then your marriage that you're trying to also continue to nurture. Where do you see like the third F or the faith piece fitting into that, or does it for you? What's been your experience there?
So if anything, that piece currently is probably the one piece that could use some strengthening. I grew up Catholic, so through high school, it was mandatory. It was church every weekend. Got to college, and you kind of got that freedom, and maybe don't put it on the highest of priorities. So fell away from church a little bit during college, and then after getting done with college, there was spurts here and there of getting back, and members being a member at a church. So, but currently, since starting F3, I'd say faith in general, right? Our description is typically something bigger than ourselves. So whether that be church, prayer, whatever it means to you, it's definitely kind of come full circle for me. I love that we end every day in prayer. It's just great. And, but something that is continually on my mind to try to do some things better. And I think, at least for me, I get a little bit overwhelmed by it, of thinking I need to be like all in or nothing.
Yeah.
Where it's probably a happy medium between all of them, of doing what I can and strengthening where I can. So, definitely something that definitely something I could do better.
Yeah. Where'd you go to college?
I went to Southeast Community College in Milford.
Okay. Awesome. I was trying to, your story, so many guys have that same story, right? Sort of grew up in some form of organized religious background, went to college. I was trying to find like, maybe there's one college we need to go and talk to about, no, I'm kidding. No, what's so interesting to me is, it's kind of like, when you're EHing a guy and they say like, well, I got to get in shape before I come to a workout, and I think, at least for me, like, my church would tell you the same thing we tell a guy, in that space, is like, no, you don't have to get into a certain state of being or religiosity, right, to come and show up. It's really, you just have to come and start, and I think it's tough, but I do think, to your point, like, we are gathering, this group of people every morning, and we're praying to a power bigger than ourselves. And I think that is, for a lot of guys, that is a great starting point to sort of get back into it. Where do you think is the barrier for you these days when you think about just that personal relationship with a God or higher power?
Yeah, I always hate to come back to time on everything. It kind of goes back to I feel like I need to put a bunch of time into getting to a certain point. Mm-hmm. Where really it's probably a lot of baby steps that add up to a lot. So it's just continuing to kind of work on it through, not only the gloom, but outside of it where I can. Yeah.
Do you feel like you have access to resources within F3 to explore that? I mean, because for some guys, right, they're still trying to answer the what question, right? What happens when we die? What does that mean about how I live today? But do you feel like you have access to, maybe it's other men, or maybe it's book studies? I mean, how's that going?
Yeah, I think there's absolutely the resources out there. I've talked to many guys, either through a beatdown or on pre-runs, about faith.
Yeah.
And just knowing some of those individuals that have a strong faith and leaning on them for, either the courage or some insight of, hey, here's where I'm at. How can you help? What should I do? What shouldn't I do? So yeah, I think there is, just talking to the guys.
Yeah, I love that. I think God works through relationships for sure, and that's, I don't know. A few guys have said like F3 is their church in a way, and you think like you can totally see that, right? Because we're, it's like you're asking other people's opinions. You're, and especially in a space where we're empowering guys to just be themselves, and letting iron sharpen iron, right? That's, to me, I feel like that's probably how God envisioned it, right? It's like we're holding each other accountable to some pretty high standards, right? We're really trying to build up men as leaders in the community. So I definitely appreciate that perspective. What about other third F stuff? Have you had a chance to do like any of the community service stuff that we put together, or participate in turkey trots or any of those things?
Yeah, so from the community events, not as many as I would have wanted to.
Yep.
Yeah, the turkey trot, Maize was the host for that. Always a good time. Tried with any of the cereal drives we've done, the shoe drives, anything that we can basically provide something for any of those community events, but have not been to like Heartland Hope or any of those yet. But
yeah, your kids are right at that cutoff. I'm in the same place where I'm like, well, I'm sure my wife would appreciate if I took my daughter there, but she's only 8 and 2. So it's like, in a few more years. But I do think there's a lot of stuff, right? Like you said, cereal drives or shoe drives where, maybe you don't have the time to give, but you can bring, shoes or cereal or, that sort of thing. I recently got a call from the blood bank about going to give blood, and since we've moved, I'm so far away now that I can't get there, give blood, and get back home over my lunch hour. But anyway, it all works out, and I think there's a season for everything, right? As we've so many guys with different circumstances. But anything in your life, just sort of thinking about your experience and maybe things that you've been through that have been sort of key factors in who you are today. Anything in that space, maybe challenges or things you've overcome or things you've worked through that you think would help other guys listening?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. I feel like through all of the COTs that I've listened to and been part of, it really gives you good perspective. Kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier of, you think you have something in your life that's really rough and tough, but you start hearing from other guys and you start realizing that they're really small challenges. There's a lot of people out there, they're really hurting. So to gain that perspective just through being through COTs with people being so vulnerable, it's really helped me, just kind of my outlook. And then so my mom passed away. It'll be 6 years in October. So that was definitely a challenging one. I don't think it's anything that you ever really fully understand or quote unquote recover from, whatever you want to call it. Something that's always there. So, but that's another thing. Sharing it through COTs or with individuals on pre-runs or in the gloom, it just allows you to process it a little bit.
Yeah. How old was she? Pretty young, I'm guessing. Was it a sudden thing, or was it something that you kind of knew over time was going to happen?
So yeah, she was 57 when she passed away. So she had battled brain cancer for about 2.5 years. So
Oh wow.
it at least was not something sudden. We had some time to prepare and some time to at least say our goodbyes and stuff. So there's definitely a lot of positives from it, that you understand over time, not right away. Uh,
Oh
yeah,
man, I'm sorry to hear that. It's one of those things that even though you had some time, right? It's like you said, it's you processing the loss of a parent. I think it's just, I don't know. It probably takes a lifetime to really fully grasp the impact. Your dad's still alive?
yeah,
Okay. How's he doing with everything?
pretty good. We have our moments in our own relationship.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of it too. As time goes on, there's these impacts down the road that it seems to kind of come up. You notice it at the holiday times and just the times you would think you would. Kids going back to school, stuff like that. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, man. I know it, never easy to reflect on those things, right? But appreciate you just being vulnerable. I think one of the other pieces that we really like to sort of get your perspective on is our mission, right? So we're trying to reinvigorate male community leadership, and we think we've got a few strategies for doing that, right? VQs and site Qs, and then just other opportunities to lead. But what's been your experience? Would love to hear, like, if you remember your VQ, and then obviously would love to hear about your leadership at the Maize and what that was like for you.
yeah. I do remember my VQ. It was out at Dragon's Lair. I happened to be at coffee after a beatdown a couple months prior, and Tonight Show had talked me into doing my VQ. So yeah, it was a fun one that morning. I will forever feel bad. Escobar got a bum hamstring out of the deal. He was sprinting with somebody, I don't remember who it was, but came up with an injury out of the deal. Um,
Well, you said the disclaimer though, right? So it's really not your fault, right?
it was on the sheet. I think I read it. Um, but no, it was a lot of fun. Something about those Saturday beatdowns, they just have a different feel to them. So it was really cool to have my VQ on a Saturday. Um, and then from there, yeah, the Maze. Through that whole process of being a site Q, it's interesting how throughout that year your mindset kind of changes. At first, it's all about man, I got to find people on the schedule, and you're worried about that. And then it kind of moves into, okay, you're kind of tracking who's there, who's showing up, who's not, who's the consistent people there. Just trying to make sure you're keeping all the new guys attending. And then obviously you got to start thinking about, okay, well, who do I pass this flag to? And then your kind of final stages are really driving home the picking up the six and watching out for all the packs. So it is fun to kind of reflect on that last year of kind of that process and how you work through it.
Hmm. What as you think about that, one of the things that came to mind, so Hard Hat, I think when he was PsyQ at the Maze, had started this like really comprehensive data tracking. Did you by the time you took over, were you still doing that? Is that still going on at the Maze?
It is.
Okay.
It was the week prior to passing that I think I caught up on the last 3 months.
Okay. Nice. Nice.
But yeah, it is a very extensive spreadsheet. It keeps track of yeah each new guy, how many times they've posted at the Maze, how many times they've led at the Maze, date of last post. I mean, it's got a ton of good information in there.
Gotcha. Well, that's, there's a tool called Pax Miner. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but that's one that, I know Hard Hat's a huge advocate for. We just haven't been able to implement it, but it does a lot of the same stuff. I'm always joking with the guys on, like, we could automate all of this stuff if we didn't, if we had Pax Miner. But anyway, that's a separate podcast, I'm sure. Tell me about, I guess from a reinvigorating male community leadership standpoint, what do you feel like you gain from, maybe it's your VQ or being a site Q that you've been able to apply to other areas of life? Anything from that space?
So I would say through that process, it's probably just, you kind of redefine your own understanding of what leadership is. You're going out and you're doing those things that you're uncomfortable with. I feel like it then you see that within your daily life, whether it's work or home, you're okay doing some of those uncomfortable things because you have the experience now of doing it in the gloom. Yeah, from my perspective, I think that's the big one for me with the site Q and the VQ.
Yeah, definitely sort of a sense of confidence. I noticed that the Q-phoria feeling for me, at least, is just renews that, like, oh yeah, I have the ability to like put a plan together and execute and get some people to follow, even though, guys that show up in the morning are, they're kind of choosing that, but it just sort of reaffirms this idea of like, okay, I kind of know how to lead here, right? I think I can apply this at work or at home for sure. What, just curious, anything else from a site Q perspective that you feel like you really enjoyed or maybe benefited you that maybe you weren't expecting?
Yeah, I think it was just knowing that every Thursday morning that I was going to show up at the Maize was going to be a great morning. Really no different than any other site, but yeah, it was all about the packs. It was the pre-runs, the pre-rucks, the beat downs themselves. We had some fun ones. We had some really hard ones. But overall, it was always a fun time getting to know some of the newer guys that were out. Whether they had started as a new guy at the Maize or not. Yeah, it was really about kind of taking yourself out of just being a PAX member each week and really trying to talk to some more people, get a good understanding of where they were at and how we could meet them where they're at. Not only from the site level, but all of F3 Omaha.
Yeah. And remind me, so I think we opened Labyrinth like right before you took the flag.
Yes.
And so then talk to me about having sort of a sister site or another site right next to you. How did that relationship go with sort of Ozark and the guys posting at the Labyrinth, all the runners?
Yeah, it was fun because a lot of the mornings, somehow, some way we would cross paths and, we'd have to do monkey humpers and the standard pass by. Yeah, it also, we did a couple site Q swaps, Ozark and I did, so those were fun. There was a morning, I won't name any names, but somebody decided it'd be a good idea. I actually think you were queuing that day.
Yeah, I think I was.
Yeah, decided to go grab the Labyrinth flag and basically steal it and bring it down to the Maize. So yeah, there's always some shenanigans going on.
Yeah, I want to say that was Griswold's idea. I'm gonna blame him. I think, I don't know whose idea that was.
I think it's actually the site Q at the Maize now is whose idea it was.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. No, talk to us about that, the succession planning and sort of what went into that.
Yeah. So Dakine during the flag pass, had made the comment of, "I'm sure I wasn't Obi-Wan's first choice," and so to set the record straight, as a site Q, you're always kind of watching out for the packs of who could potentially take the flag, and you kind of have a short list, right? And I had not talked to anybody, but I'd been hearing some other sites that have been choosing some people, and it was, they were maybe 6-8 months out, and it was like, oh man, I better get on this. So timing worked out just the way that it did. Shortly after I'd had some of those conversations, Dakine actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you have a plan for the Maize?" And him being on the short list, it was a no-brainer of, man, if somebody's willing to ask and is ready to be that leader of a site, by all means, yeah, we discussed it a little bit, went through some stuff, and yeah, he started at the Maize, pretty regular at the Maize, and just one of those guys that he's that gravity sometimes that people are just pulled to him. So yeah, to me it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. It seems like more guys are doing that too, where they're reaching out saying, hey, I want to be a site Q. And I love that idea, because we're trying to really empower everyone to lead and not necessarily wait to be asked, right? I mean, if you're passionate about something, you want to do something, you're looking for an opportunity, like bring it up, right? Ask somebody, ask a site Q, say, hey, is there an opportunity for me to do XYZ, right? And I think as F3 Omaha gets bigger, like we want to support every guy in what they're passionate about, what they're trying to do. And maybe that's being a site Q, maybe that's some third F event, but we don't know unless you bring it up, right? So I think, I love that approach. So you had him sort of identified then pretty early on in the journey.
Yeah, throughout just being at the Maize, and then even being at other AOs, he's just the guy that stuck out of the crowd.
Yeah, I love it. What anything else that you can think of that maybe, I don't know if maybe you have advice for guys that are listening, or for F&Gs, or for other site Qs, or maybe anything else you would want to share from your journey that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I think you actually kind of touched on it just a little bit ago of, if guys have ideas for whether it be a third F event, or like Tea Party just did the downtown Friday night beat, like,
yeah,
share those ideas, get something set up. I think it's really cool that people are thinking outside the box and executing those things. So that'd be one thing. Other than that, just keep posting. I mean, it's amazing. This is definitely the most consistent thing that I've probably ever done in my life outside of work. So there's obviously something working, and a reason of why we're there every morning and why we keep coming back. So for the newer guys, the thing that I would say is just keep posting, keep finding those guys that it always seems like some of the new guys that kind of start at the same time end up having really good relationships with each other. So just keep talking to everybody, keep those relationships going, and just keep posting.
Yeah. Hey, I want to get your thoughts on something. So you start F3, you do your VQ, then you become a site Q. And I think we're all used to in the workplace, right? Sort of climbing the ladder, right? So that once I'm a this role, then I become this role. But so you're a site Q, then you hand that off. How do you see your role now? What do you see? I think the consistency is key, but just, sometimes we see guys drop off right after they hand that flag off, and maybe it's an identity sort of thing where they don't know where they fit. But how do you see it?
I think you shift into giving it back.
Yep.
Right. There was countless guys that allowed me to do my VQ, to become a site Q, to just be out there every day, and become who I've become. So I think it's just giving everybody that opportunity, no matter how long you've been there, to just basically be whatever you want to be within F3, and just keep, just keep pushing some people, and meet people where they're at.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect. I would totally agree. I mean, I think it's just keep giving it away, keep being consistent, find ways to encourage the new guy that shows up next, that next F&G that shows up and is like, what is this crazy cult thing? Try to help them navigate. I do want to get one last question from you here. Is just, in your current life, with everything going on, where do you need the most, prayers or encouragement from guys that are listening? If we see out there, what's something we could be encouraging you on?
Yeah, right now, definitely with our son starting kindergarten, we got a new routine to get down. He's kind of in that good honeymoon phase right now where stuff's new. So just my family in general is kind of what comes to mind first. we don't want to ever think about it as a burden or anything. So it's just continue to work through that. Whether it be my M and I's marriage, our relationship with both our kids. So yeah, just in that general area is probably where front of mind right now, where we're at in life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a good one. I'll be praying for you on that. I'm sure, any transition is hard, but I think just, different circumstances could make things more or less challenging. So definitely we'll be praying for you on that, man. Hey, I appreciate you just taking time to share and be vulnerable and give us a little more insight. It's funny to me that the Star Wars, that your parents were not Star Wars fans. I don't know how that happened, but maybe that's another episode. Well, we'll do a little bit of Name-A-Rama. I'll start us off. Brandon Flehardy, 37, The Plague.
The Plague. Henry Kenobi, 36, Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan, and this is where we say only hope. And is it officially, do we say you're our only hope, or we just blurt out only hope? How does that go?
Yeah. Yep, you're our only hope. But
you're our only hope.
Immediately, I always want to say is no, F3 is our only hope.
Oh, there we go. Okay, maybe I'll work that into the title for the episode. Awesome, man. It was good to see you. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. See ya.
Later.